Fire away.
Well, start with the obvious one. The Lions obviously kept you busy this offseason with all their off-field incidents. How much of your visit here is talking with people in the organization, players, whoever, about that?
Well, I think that's true. Whenever we're going to training camps, we take the time to talk to the players, the coaches, front office, ownership, to try to understand what's going on, what are the trends, what are the important issues. Obviously, the Lions have made this very clear what they're all about, their standards, and what they expect their players and other people in the organization to be held to, and they're backing that up.
Why do you think they've had so many issues this offseason, and how troubling is it to you?
Well, I think any time you have these issues, it detracts from the people who are doing so many great things. There's so many great players on this team and throughout the league, and when these incidents occur, they reflect poorly on all of us. And I think that's the reason why I believe the Lions want to make sure that their standards are upheld, and we as a league feel that way, and the players feel that way.
Have you talked to LaSure and Fairley, and what have you said to them as far as their conduct going forward from now?
Well, I haven't talked to them today. I haven't had a chance to see them yet, but I will see them after practice. And
what's your message then to them after practice?
The same message has been all along, is that you're an NFL player, and you have to conduct yourself in a certain way and hold yourself to that standard. And we're going to expect that, and the club's going to expect that.
Right. Both the Knicks hearings have been will be delayed till November or later. How much do you consider, playoff races, competitive balance, that sort of thing, when you hand out suspensions?
You really just have to go through the process, and you can't let that be involved. You have to say, listen, what is the process we have to go through, and you stick to that process and make the decision that's necessary. I think anytime you're dealing with a discipline, particularly suspension, it's a serious issue, and you want to be very careful and thoughtful.
Can you handle Knicks matter earlier? Before it goes through?
We may.
Were you just disappointed at all? I mean, just to hear one arrest after another, coming out of this ball club in particular?
Well, I think you're disappointed when you hear any of that, because again, it reflects poorly on themselves first, all players in the NFL in general, and our fans don't want to see that. So we all have an obligation to our fans to hold up that standard, and we're very clear with our players, our coaches, our executives, that that's all part of being a part of the NFL. And when we say that being a part of the NFL is really a privilege, not a right.
Roger, when we're getting close to a preseason game where these guys are going to be going full speed, does it give you any level of concern that you're going to have referees out there who may not be used to that speed when there is so much emphasis on the player safety at this stage?
We've been training these officials for the last couple of months. They've come with experience. I was with some players yesterday, and they were talking about that. I don't think they have that concern. So I think the issue for us is we want to get it resolved. We have great respect for our officials. We'd like to see them on the field, but we also want to do things to improve officiating. And we have economic issues, but we also have issues that we might want to expand the number of crews so that we can continue to improve officiating. Those things need to be resolved as part of this. In the meantime, we're going to put officials out there that we feel confident in.
I'm sorry about that. Back to the discipline for a second. Aaron Berry, Johnny Colbert, guys with the team, are they still subject to suspensions or discipline? I mean, without.
Sure. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you just leave a team. Sure.
And how does that affect the Lions? I mean, fines for teams when they incur more than 2 suspensions. Is the Lions, or would they still be on the hook for possibly being fined for that?
If the incidents occur on their team, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about safety, considering Javid Best? 9 months later, he's still not cleared, and you're I guess going forward and how to make this game safer when it is such a violent game.
Well, first off, in Javid's case, I think the medical personnel of the Lions are taking a very cautious approach, which is the correct one. And it's a medical decision, and the medical people will make those decisions. And that's true throughout the league. We've got greater awareness, we have a better understanding, but there's still a lot of unknowns when it comes to head injuries and being able to determine when someone's going to recover or how they recover. That's one of the challenges we have in medical science right now. And so we're not waiting. We're trying to be proactive and make sure we're making changes to our game so that we can make the game safer.
How closely does the NFL monitor a situation like Javid Best?
Very closely. The medical care that our players get is extraordinary. Javid in particular has seen a number of doctors outside the Detroit Lions organization, neutral doctors, and they are all focus on his case and make sure that we can make the best decisions for Javad Best.
Roger, because of the publicity around the Javad Best situation and the publicity about concussions, is this becoming a little bit of a line in the sand for the concussion issue with the NFL? And this one seems to be getting more scrutiny than almost any other active player.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
The NFL has to make a point about concussions, and is that the case with Javad Best, that you have to take this even more experts take it more seriously than anyone?
No, as I just said a minute ago, it's a medical decision. And so the doctors make those decisions. So he obviously is having difficulty recovering from the concussion. They have to be very cautious in that approach and make sure they're seeing the appropriate doctors. And again, I think those are decisions we want the medical people to make, not us. We're not influencing those decisions.
Okay, but they have to be more cautious than ever because of the concussion issues that have existed in the NFL?
Well, of course. I mean, the reality is we want to make sure that we're doing everything in the best interest of our players for their long-term health as well as their short-term health. So we are going to continue to make sure they have the best medical care and that we can do the best things we can for our players.
Roger, you've been in the league and youth football. How much do you think they're tied to, the
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part.
The health initiatives, help player safety in the league and youth football, all through football? How much do you think of it is tied to the lawsuits that are all over the place now?
Nothing. We've been under really taking on these programs for several years because it's the right thing to do, because we want to make sure we make the football safe and exciting, and we think we can do both. And it's just not football. This goes well beyond football. I have twin daughters who play soccer, and it's the work that we're doing is having an impact on other sports and making other sports safer, and that's what we're trying to do. And it even goes beyond sports. We're working with the military very closely to make sure that we can help them with what we've learned. It's the return to the field and return to the battlefield. So we're working very closely with the military because this is new from a medical science standpoint, and we're all learning a lot, and we have to make sure that we're leading the way because that's our responsibility as the NFL.
What is your impression so far of the Lions just walking around camp?
Well, you can just see. I think there's a great deal of optimism and confidence that this organization is moving in the right direction. I don't make predictions, but they
Would
feel.
you?
No, no.
Okay, I had to ask.
You did, but you also got the answer. So.
Okay.
But I think you can see it and you can feel it. I think it goes from the fans to right throughout the organization, and that's a good sign.
You've been very tough on discipline during your tenure as commissionership. Do you have to do even more considering the rash of arrests this offseason and incidents this offseason?
Well, we just talked about that recently with the Players Association. What else should we be doing? And it's not just discipline. Everyone focuses on the discipline, but part of it's education and really just understanding and giving them resources to make better decisions. So we're talking about what other things can we do to help players make better decisions.
What are some of those?
Couple more for the commissioner.
Better education. When you go out, make sure you have an alternative. Don't drive. Simple things like that, but we have to try to provide those resources. We had a program called Safe Rides. As an example of that, any player or any person in the NFL could call and get a ride home. Those kind of programs need to be utilized.
In the case of someone like Nick Fairley, do you have to wait for all the legal processes to go through before you make any punishment determination?
No, I met with Nick earlier this spring, and we talked an awful lot about where he is, and we don't by policy, particularly if there's a pattern of behavior. But if there is not a pattern, we certainly do acknowledge the legal process and want to be respectful of that.
The NBA is talking about ads on uniforms. Would you ever consider that? How do you feel about that?
It's not something that's actively being considered in the NFL. We like the look that we have on the field. We have a very limited number of partners on our field in general, much less on the uniform, and we think that's the right for the NFL.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem.